All right, and we are live. Yan, do you want to get started?
Sure. Thank you, Tina. Hi, everyone. So my name is Yanji. I'm a PhD student at Cornell University working with Professor Reorg. Today, I'm very glad to introduce BDoS, Blockchain Denial Service, which is a new family of incentive-based attacks to DoS blockchains and how it relates to Reorg across chains. So this is basically how a reorg occurs on a single chain. When there is a longer chain, honest miners mine on it, thus often the shorter one. What if there are multiple independent chains? Is reorg still possible? Well, recall the hash war in 2018 between Bitcoin SV and Bitcoin Cash. Although they are forks from the same chain, we can see there is an incentive for reorg across chains. For example, if the Bitcoin community thought they are the origin and would like to dominate the SHA-256-based blockchain economics by ruling out Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, or Bitcoin SV. So with such incentive in mind, how can people carry out such a reorg? It turns out that liveness is key to reorg. When there's no liveness, in other words, the chain no longer grows, the target chain dies, just like any orphan fork in a reorg on a single chain. So a simple way to reorg is by mounting a 51% attack. Basically, 51% of the mining power reorgs the chain and mines empty blocks only. As you may see here, this is also a reorg on a single chain. The question is, can we break liveness with less mining power? In other words, can we reorg across chains with less than 51% of the mining power from the target chain? Well, our work on BDoS, Blockchain Denial Service, shows that it is possible by leveraging miners' rationality. This is joint work with researchers from Technion, Cornell, and IC3. So blockchain technology is developing prosperously. More than 8,000 cryptocurrencies are in the trading market. Today, the global crypto market cap is over $1 trillion. More than 70% of them are coins of Nakamoto blockchains. Nakamoto consensus is proved to guarantee safety and liveness under the honest majority assumption. Miners are incentivized to honestly follow the protocol to gain block rewards. However, whether the protocol is indeed incentive compatible is in question. Well, a straightforward prerequisite for such motivation to hold is that the mining profitability must be greater than 1. If mining is no longer profitable, miners lack incentives to keep mining. But even when mining is profitable, BDoS attack still enables an attacker to render a blockchain to halt with significantly fewer resources when miners are rational. Note that our result is not conflicting with the proved security of Nakamoto consensus, because we're assuming miners apart from the adversary are rational, instead of being altruistically following the protocol. Before we go into how BDoS works, let's first see why there might be DoS attacks. So as mentioned before, we could think of fewer scenarios where a government or organizations are interested in sabotaging a specific coin due to some external incentives. Another possibility is just wars between coins or reorgs across chains, where miners affiliated with specific coins are interested in destroying a competing coin, like the hash war between Bitcoin SV and Bitcoin Cash in the end of 2018. By DoS blockchain services, the relative coin and tokens might be devalued, but traders might gain from short selling. So let's have an overview on the differences between BDoS and previous DoS attacks. Previous DoS attacks target individual system components, such as an exchange, a mining pool, BGP routers, or nodes. In contrast, BDoS utilizes incentive mechanism to motivate rational miners to quit mining. This could stop the whole chain from functioning. Previous DoS attacks are usually expensive due to the decentralization nature of blockchains. For example, they need to conduct massive network resources to eclipse a node, or take up 51% of the total hash rate to break consensus. In contrast, BDoS is an incentive-based attack. There is no need to spend too much resource on monopolizing the network, so it's less expensive. In the meanwhile, previous BDoS attacks require continuous resource expenditure to maintain the attack. But with BDoS, once the system comes to a halt, the attacker doesn't need to keep mining anymore. Thus, the long-term operational cost is almost zero. To understand the attack better, we will see a correct run of the blockchain. At first, there is a block that all miners agree upon and keep mining on it. When a miner finds a new block, hopefully all the miners hear about this block, and it becomes the most recent block that all miners agree upon. The miner of the new block gets a certain amount of reward, and so on. An alternative scenario is that two miners find a block within a short time difference. In this case, the protocol dictates that all miners should choose to mine on the block they heard first. The case when there are two chains of the same height is called a fork. When a new block is mined to break the tie, all miners agree upon the longest chain and resume to the regular case. We call the discarded block the shorter chain orphan block, and the miner of that block doesn't get any reward for it. Note that resources used to mine the orphan block, B3 here, is wasted. In BDoS, the attacker takes advantage of this. So overall is the behavior of honest miners. For BDoS, we view mining as a game and assumes a slightly different setting. We have two types of players in the game. Rational miners are profit-oriented, with no external incentive. They honestly follow the protocol, but when mining is no longer profitable, they turn off their mining rigs. In contrast, the utility of the attacker is external, so different from those profit-oriented attacks such as selfish mining. The goal here is not to maximize the attacker's revenue, but to cause a blockchain to cease functioning with fewer resources. In BDoS, the attacker commits to an attack and will not deviate. Now let's see how the attacker works. Initially, similarly to what we saw before, all miners, including the attacker, agree on the most recent block. If the attacker finds the new block, instead of publishing the entire block, she publishes only its header, and the attacker stops mining. Now, the rational miner encounters a dilemma. He has two main actions he can take. One is to keep mining on previous block, and the other is to stop mining for a while when the attacker has the advantage. Let's first see what happens when the rational miner chooses to keep mining. If he chooses to keep mining, whether or not he realizes that the attacker has an advantage, either he or some other miner that remains mining finds a new block at the same height as the attacker's block. The attacker immediately publishes the data that corresponds to the block header. In this case, we get a race condition. We assume the attacker has some rushing ability, just like in selfish mining. So there's a non-negligible proportion of miners in the network receiving the attacker's full block data first. Therefore, those miners follow the attacker's block. If the attacker's branch grows faster, the miner of the orphaned block loses the game and gets zero reward. Therefore, for a rational miner that keeps mining in the dilemma, there is a risk of losing reward of a block. Now let's take a review of strategy 1. So if the miner keeps mining in the dilemma, this cost remains the same as usual, but the expected reward is significantly decreased. Thus, in the long term, the profitability is decreased. Now let's see what happens when the rational miner chooses to stop mining. So again, the attacker finds a block and publishes the header only. Then the rational miner turns off his mining rigs. There might be some other rational miner that remains mining and finds the next block. Then the attacker immediately releases the full block data. Now the rational miner we're considering should resume mining because now the expected reward is the same as usual. No matter which branch wins in the race, the miner of the new block B2 star always gets full reward because it won't be orphaned. So if during the dilemma, all rational miners choose to stop mining, since the attacker is not mining either, the blockchain stops growing and comes to a halt. Overall, for a rational miner taking strategy 2, there is no operational expenses or income. If other miners keep mining, then at some point we will return to initial state and our miner will continue mining. But if no one remains mining, the blockchain halts. Given these two strategies, which one will a rational miner choose? To formally analyze this, we consider the case study for a single rational miner PI, and consider mining as an infinite game without a discount factor. The rational miner aims to maximize his utility, and the utility is defined as an expected profit per unit time in this infinite game. We aim to find the condition when stop mining is the dominant strategy for PI, meaning that no matter what strategies other miners choose, stop mining is always profitable with respect to our utility function. We compute the utilities of two strategies using Markov chains. There are only three possible states: the initial state when all miners agree on the same most recent block, the dilemma state when the attacker publishes a header, and the race state when a rational miner finds a block at the same height as the attacker's block. I'm not going into details of the transitions here, but comparing the two utility functions, we found that when the peacetime mining profitability is not too high, stop mining is dominant. Here, peacetime means when there is no attack, all miners follow the mining protocol. Therefore, the mining hash rate a BDoS attacker needs is a function of the peacetime mining profitability. Actually, there's an additional strategy that is pretty compliant and sometimes is observed in practice, which is called SPV mining. SPV miners might mine on the adversary's block header without receiving the full block data. We prove that SPV mining does not change our results. Detailed analysis can be found in our full paper. Now let's review our result. What does it mean in practice? To evaluate the attack in practice, we need to first compute real-world peacetime mining profitability. The mining revenue is straightforward. It is a function of the coin price, mining difficulty, block reward, and miner's hash rate. However, what are the mining costs? Miners have two types of cost in practice. One is called CapEx. It includes mining hardware, software, space if owned, etc. The other type is OPEX, which includes electricity for running the mining gear, cooling, space if rented, human labor, etc. The difference in cost between mining and not mining is the electricity and cooling. In our analysis, we only take those two expenditures into consideration for the peacetime mining. The electricity price varies across the world and seasons. Most mining farms used to be located in Sichuan, China, where hydropower is rich and electricity price is low. In wet seasons, it is as low as 4 cents per kilowatt hour, and in dry seasons, it is 6 cents. We assume there is an additional 15% cost for cooling systems. So, collecting those data, we are able to plot the real-time operational profitability. In this graph, we assume the electricity price is 4 cents per kilowatt hour. We also assume the most profitable hardware model is available whenever it is released. In practice, miners might not always get the most profitable model due to the delay of shipment, manufacturers, or budget. Overall, based on our super conservative assumptions, we have an upper bound estimate of mining profitability. We plot minimum hash rate required for BDoS attack under different peacetime mining profitability. An important thing to note here is that the attacker can choose the timing of the attack, so the security of the system should be characterized by the weakest point in time. As we could see, on March 13, 2020, an attacker with only 21% of hash power can stop all rational miners from mining, assuming the electricity price is 4 cents per kilowatt hour. And for 6 cents per kilowatt hour of electricity price, the attack threshold is as low as 1%. While the effectiveness is sensitive with peacetime mining profitability, we also found that the attack can even be more effective under a more practical model. When the attacker publishes a block header, instead of stop mining, a rational miner can choose to mine a different chain that uses the same hash function. Many coins have identical mining algorithm. For example, Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash have similar profitability due to constant miner migration. We can consider a new model where stop mining translates to mine on another chain. In the case the profitability of coins is similar, an attacker can always reduce one coin's profitability, causing migration of rational miners. Detailed bounds on two coins' profitability ratio and attacker's threshold can be found in our full paper, but this already constitutes the reorg across chains. So in summary, BDoS is a new family of incentive-based attacks, and it can be used for reorgs across chains. It targets Nakamoto blockchains, requires significantly fewer resources than in previous attacks. Same as the lesson learned from reorgs on a single chain, reorgs across chains via BDoS also indicates that blockchain security should not rely on altruism. And for more details, check out our full paper. I'd be more than happy to discuss with you in details offline. Thank you for listening.
Okay, awesome. This was great. We're going to transition to the next session now.